Let's go. Saturday Grand Prix will begin. Are you ready? Let's race!
Formula One returns this weekend to Imola and the circuit Enzo e Dino Ferrari. Named for the founder of the world's most storied racing team and the son that he lost at a desperately young age. The history of this track, much as the family whose name adorns it, is steeped in both triumph and tragedy.
Nobody is in their seats here.
Disposable ever down into Tozer.
You'll never see a Grand Prix more exciting than that.
There's been a racing circuit in the town of Imola for 7 decades, ever since a number of existing roads from Imola to nearby Codregano were connected to create a racetrack. Its first Formula One race came in 1963, as Jim Clark won a non-championship event for Lotus. Niki Lauda won the next non-championship F1 race in 1979, but the very next year saw the circuit become a legitimate Formula One host, as the Italian Grand Prix was held away from Monza for the first time in the World Championship era. The event, won by Nelson Piquet, was such a success that from 1981 Italy was granted 2 races, with the Italian Grand Prix returning to Monza as Imola became the San Marino Grand Prix, named in honour of the nearby microstate. From its earliest days, the track was notorious for controversy. In 1982, an epic tussle for the win was played out between Ferrari teammates Pironi and Villeneuve. The Frenchman ignored team orders and took the victory, a deed for which Villeneuve never forgave him. The mighty Canadian losing his life just days later in Belgium.
Senna's away beautifully, so is De Angelis.
3 years later, and Ayrton Senna came agonisingly close to recording back-to-back wins after taking his debut victory the race before in Portugal. After a titanic scrap with the man who would become his fiercest rival, the Brazilian ran out of fuel.
That dramatic moment, Ayrton Senna has had victory snatched from him.
But Alain Prost, having taken the win, would be disqualified for being underweight. Elio De Angelis thus took his second and last F1 win without ever leading a lap. 1989 saw the spark that ignited one of the fiercest rivalries in all sport, as Senna and Prost's relationship disintegrated in front of the world's eyes. The McLaren duo had a pact that whoever reached the first corner first would go unchallenged for victory in what was turning out to be one of the most dominant team displays in Formula One history. Senna won the first corner fight, and Prost dutifully fell behind. But when the race was red flagged, a difference of opinion formed. Prost believed the second start represented a reset on their agreement, while Senna believed the first start was the only one that counted. This time, Prost won what he believed was a fight to the first turn, but was promptly retaken by his teammate.
Senna is attacking and he's got the inside line for the corner.
And things would never be the same between them again. The controversies of the past are framed in the corners that create this majestic and flowing track. Who could forget Tosa, where Pironi passed Villeneuve in that ill-fated race in '82, or where Patrese wrestled past Arnoux 1 year later, or indeed the spot where in 2004 Michael Schumacher definitely didn't see Juan Pablo Montoya.
You know, you gotta either be blind or stupid to not see me, but you know, it's racing.
Aqua Minerale was always one of the fiercest challenges in previous visits, the downhill double right and kink back uphill, requiring absolute commitment and confidence. Ravazza too had the ability to catch out champions. This moment for Prost from the lead in 1984 saw the Italian crowd jump to their feet as a home Ferrari victory suddenly looked possible.
The Italian crowd is absolutely beside itself with euphoria.
Variante Bassa, a corner added to the circuit in 1973, but recently removed to return the circuit to a configuration closer to its original layout. We may remember Mika Häkkinen spinning out of the lead at Monza in 1999, but he'd done exactly the same thing earlier in the year here at Variante Bassa, trying to pull out a gap before the pit stops. And of course, Tamburello. 1987 had seen Piquet crash at the infamously fast left-hander, and Gerhard Berger was lucky to escape this horror crash in 1989 with burnt hands.
Until the moment where I touched the wall, I remember everything.
and after I sleep a little bit because I was tired.
Michele Alboreto and Riccardo Patrese were lucky to escape crashes here in the early 1990s, but it was the 1994 weekend for which the name Tamburello and indeed Imola would become forever tied to the story of Formula One. On the sport's darkest weekend, Rubens Barrichello was gravely injured in practice. On Saturday, the world stood shocked as much-loved and highly regarded rookie Roland Ratzenberger crashed at the Villeneuve corner, snatching him away in an instant. And May the 1st, 1994, was a day that changed Formula One forever. Ayrton Senna's passing after a crash at Tamburello on the 7th lap of the San Marino Grand Prix robbed the sport of one of its greatest icons. A racer who, a quarter of a century later, is still regarded as potentially the greatest of all time, and acts still as the inspiration to the current world champion and the man setting records which may never be broken.
As he is in Brazil, he's in my heart. He always has been someone that I've loved even though I never got to meet him, and his legacy lives on.
It's impossible to remove the spectre of that weekend from this place. Senna's name, his loss and his legacy fill the air that hangs amongst these trees. His statue, a place of eerie silence and reverence, has become a place of pilgrimage. Imola today remains much as it always has, those fast corners, its undulating kinks and blind crests. No margin for error, no space for mistake. It represents the same challenge to the grid of 2020 as it did to those pioneers 70 years ago, and every great that's raced here since.